Yeah, for a tent. A tent. Yeah. I mean, the police department.
You were live. See it on YouTube? Yeah, we're on YouTube.
I'll wait a minute for people to come in. Woo! It's hot.
It is.
It's hot Louisville.
I think we're live. And ask the guy in the green shirt if he could come over in a little bit when I'm done with her.
Okay.
I like it. Yeah.
You see it?
Hey, it's Jordan. I am here in Louisville, Kentucky. It is a hot day for a lot of reasons. We're right here at the memorial site in Jefferson Square Park, where protesters have been gathering for weeks, demanding justice for Breonna Taylor, who was a 26-year-old black woman murdered while sleeping by the Louisville police. Literally, I'm here with, let me make sure this is off. We were about to start our interview here with Hannah, a local poet and activist, when all of a sudden I saw, in the beginning, 4 Louisville police officers roll up, get out of their car, and in a real bizarre, show of force, it started with about 5 police officers, then another 6 or 7 showed up, all to get the protesters here to take down a tent. I've never seen anything like it. That kind of ridiculous show of force all over a tent that they put up. It's hot, so obviously they're trying to get some shade. They have the right to protest, I think, in America. That might be going away.
Right.
So Hannah, by the way, I was live on my personal Periscope, so you could watch that after this interview to see this standoff between police and protesters. Press the like button, get this out to more people. The thumbs up button right under the live stream. Share this live stream. So Hannah Drake, you're a local poet.
Yes.
Can you kind of just tell the audience, I mean, we just got here, so that was kind of bizarre, but that's not an unusual thing.
No, to me, to see that, it's not unusual. When the protest started, we came out to protest. I was tear gassed. So for doing nothing, a group of people were tear gassed for doing nothing. So what you saw today, I'm glad you were here and got it on film, but it's not uncommon to send 10 to 15 police officers to remove a tent is beyond ridiculous. But this is often what this community has done to black people when it comes to over-policing. It would have been simple just to keep the tent up, But if the tent must come down, it certainly didn't take 10 to 15 officers to bring down one tent. And so I always believe that that's just the show of force to further reinforce the oppression that we are facing in Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
So this didn't surprise me today.
Jen, everything, the audio's good, everything? Okay. So what I want to get across here, because we were really up close hearing the words, almost every officer was white. There was one or two black officers. Few of the white officers, frankly, I could kind of hear them under their breath. They were kind of enjoying the protesters. They were really enjoying the protesters getting pissed off. Obviously, the protesters were yelling, why do we have to pull down a tent? The police came, citing some city ordinance about tents in a public square. So now the protesters, they took down the tent. Now they're putting up the umbrella. But I think that tent is kind of symbolic for everything that's happened here.
Yeah.
You have a young woman in bed.
Yep.
She immediately is, because the police think they have some evidence that she's somehow attached to alleged drug dealers. The police go in commando style in the middle of the night. They didn't have to do that. They could have approached Breonna Taylor a different way for an interview. Her life is taken. She was hit by 8 bullets.
Yes.
They're investigating, but the investigation has gone on for over 100 days.
Correct.
In the case of George Floyd, the Attorney General took it over. He actually had action very quickly.
Correct.
What is behind this delay in justice here in Louisville?
For myself, I believe there are 2 things. There are always 2 things going to work against Breonna Taylor. She's black and she's a woman. Sadly, so she has her story wedged in between Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. It was not until George Floyd got the attention that he did, and rightfully so, that people started speaking of Breonna Taylor's name. I mean, Breonna Taylor was murdered March 13th. This really started picking up steam in May, around the end of May. And I believe it was an influencer that put this information out. We had tried to put this information out ourselves, always on social media, and it just wasn't getting any traction. So it's sad, but it's just the way of America, that women will always struggle to be heard, and black women will truly struggle to be heard, and that's what happened in Breonna Taylor's case.
And, I think it goes deeper than that, because the talk has been, obviously about police brutality, but there's no talk about the economic brutality going on
correct.
here. For example, they wanted to ask Breonna Taylor questions about her connections to alleged drug dealers, but then there's no questions. Why are so many people having to sell drugs here?
Correct.
Because there are no jobs.
Correct.
Black people have basically been left on one corner of Louisville, the west side. Can you kind of talk about, I was interviewing somebody yesterday, besides the fact that they cut down the polls to 1 polling place for the Senate contest, a lot of people on the west side weren't even aware that you could do mail-in ballots, that there were. So the Breonna Taylor murder is in the backdrop of much more violence.
Yes. So and it's not far from here. It's 9th Street. It's called the 9th Street Divide. It was deliberately put into the city to keep quote-unquote undesirables from coming into downtown. This was a deliberate action. Even now when we see the recent breaking news with Breonna Taylor's death allegedly, and I'm using that word loosely, but whatever, being tied to an overall gentrification project in the West End. So you think about what's happening in the Russell community, the money that's being funneled into Russell to gentrify this community and basically remove black people from this community and now bring in white people into the Russell community. To think that her murder can be tied to that is just another sad state of this city. But it does speak to the economics, and it speaks to race, and it speaks to poverty. It speaks to all of these things that Louisville has to face.
Could you, Jen, could you resend me that story, the Louisville Courier-Journal, about the gentrification she's talking about? That's what I'm looking at my phone for, because what she's talking about, I just want people to know, Breonna Taylor's family lawyer just submitted part of their lawsuit that her murder was actually linked to an effort by Louisville police, Louisville city proper, to basically, bulldoze a whole block on the west side of Louisville. Again, the poor black side. So their lawsuit is now putting claims in that Breonna Taylor's murder specifically happened in the backdrop of efforts to bulldoze this block where Breonna Taylor lived, bulldoze this area where there was supposed drug dealing going on, to gentrify it, which we know what that means. High-rise apartments, maybe a Whole Foods,
a cafe. All of these things were slated to be on this property. So when people read through the paperwork, it almost seems too unbelievable. In fact, when I read through the article, I thought, this sounds like I've seen this before on TV. Well, it was part of a TV show, the first theme of the season of The Chi, where they were killing people and taking their homes, gentrifying the neighborhood. And I thought, it seems like it's made for TV. But I couldn't.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want the audience to understand. So Breonna Taylor's shooting was the result of a Louisville Police Department operation to clear out a block in western Louisville that was part of a major gentrification makeover, according to attorneys representing the slain 26-year-old's family. Lawyers for Taylor's family allege in court documents filed in Jefferson Circuit Court that a police squad named Place-Based Investigations had, quote, deliberately misled narcotics detectives to target a home on Elliott Avenue, leading them to believe they were after some of the city's largest violent crime and drug rings.
Correct. So to me I have more questions now. What did the city know? When did you know it? Did the city put pressure on the police to clear out Elliott? So there are so many questions that are tied to this home now. I couldn't figure out for the life of me why they had 5 no-knock warrants for a low-level drug dealer. This was not Nino Brown. This was not Scarface. This was not Pablo Escobar. This is a low-level drug dealer. What was the need for 5 no-knock warrants? So now when this all comes out, this story to me now makes sense because I couldn't figure it out.
And another thing is, what was the need? Breonna Taylor is 26. She has no criminal record. Her boyfriend didn't have a criminal record. She was an EMT treating coronavirus patients.
Yep.
What is the need to go in the middle of the night with no-knock warrants to somebody who has no criminal history, is not deemed a threat in any way? Why can't you just approach them during the day calmly? You don't need to bring in the cavalry.
Right, exactly.
So it goes to show you this racist backdrop of fearing black people and feeling like you need to come in with that kind of force in the middle of the night. Yeah, if I was sleeping in bed and I heard people intruding, I'd probably want to get my gun too.
Yeah. I think that is so relevant, and this is always a point I try to get across to people. The Second Amendment applies to everyone. You know, if you can legally own a gun, you can own a gun. And a lot of people think that doesn't apply to black people. Also, here we have the Castle Doctrine. You're able to defend your home. So you cannot have no-knock warrants and the Castle Doctrine. Those two things are juxtaposed to each other. Because if the police went into anybody's home, you don't announce, you're banging through the door, I would do the very same thing. So what gets me is they knew this, but still tried to charge Kenneth with attempted murder. They knew that Breonna Taylor was dead in her apartment and didn't tell her mother that she was dead inside the apartment and sent her mother on this wild goose chase to the hospital. These are things that the city has done. These are facts. They didn't have a need for this no-knock warrant. Judge Mary Shaw signed 5 of them. And according to things that I've read, it was the only 5 no-knock warrants signed for this entire year. Why for just one person? So when people start following the paperwork and following the course of events, sadly, it traces back to this greed and racism and power-hungry people in the city. And that's sad that Breonna Taylor did not need to die for that. She did not need to die so that a community could be gentrified. Mm-hmm. That's the story, and they come out with these statements to speak about the Russell community, and they're trying to make it safer. Safer for who if it's tied to this collusion and corruption? And so I have questions. As a citizen of Louisville, I have questions, and I think everybody should be raising those questions, because if this happened to Breonna, then it can happen to anyone. How many other people have been put out of their homes, forced out of their homes for this reason? So I think the city needs to be held accountable and answer some tough questions.
And by the way, just so the audience understands, because some of you might have come into this live stream late, I put the headline, Protestors and Cops Clash, because right before our interview, all of a sudden, 4 or 5, it's midday. The only thing going on where we're standing is protesters gathered under a tent, peaceful, listening to music. Nothing was going on.
Nothing at all.
4 or 5 Louisville police cars stroll up. They come up in a show of force to about a dozen or so protesters over here, and they demand that they take down a tent. This escalated to the point where you had, I think, 7 police cruisers. You had, by my count, 12 police officers all over making protesters pull down a tent. By the way, with the heat index, probably close to 100 degrees out.
Correct.
So that's why I put the headline, "They clash." It's on my Periscope too. We shot what was going on, but seeing the animosity the protesters have for these police, and honestly, I could just read. I mean, it's my job to kind of read people.
Right.
Some of these police officers really enjoy it.
Oh, I'm sure.
I saw a few of the white police officers smirking.
Yeah.
One of them was looking back at me. I asked her, "Are you looking at me for a reason?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm just listening to your commentary," like in a condescending way. Kind of talk about the history here of the police. I mean, I call it just fucking with protesters.
Right, and this has happened. This is not unusual. This has happened since people have started protesting. The police are constantly antagonizing the protesters. When it is peaceful, it's when the police just aren't around. Nobody was doing anything down here, and it didn't get where someone was clashing until the police come to speak about this tent. But the police have constantly done that. The police have the FOP and the police, and they put out these statements, and they have their own press conference, and they put out this information, and I believe it's to instill some type of fear in the protesters. They've locked up independent black media that has been down here. They've locked up people that are going live, making it very difficult for people to tell the story. Here's an example, and this just came out. You can look this up because the headline was changed. The police put out that a protester rammed their car into a police vehicle. Well, sorry, police, that's a lie, because somebody was live and had it recorded. And the car was hit on the side, which shows the police actually hit the Jeep. It wasn't the other way around. And so I believe that's a reason why they don't want people going live, because they can't lie freely anymore, because there are people such as yourself and other people that are telling the true story of what is happening. And down here, what you saw today, how it will be reported is another story, but we witnessed it. We were here. Nothing was going on. There was no need for such excessive force. But I believe that's where we are in the city. Will it get better? Probably not, until we deal with the root causes of why we are here today.
And I want to ask you, obviously, I'm a man,
Right.
so I won't pretend to understand, but you mentioned the Breonna Taylor story didn't catch on. I don't want to say catch on, but definitely didn't spark the attention of
Right.
George Floyd. Part one, because she's black, and one, because she's a woman. Can you kind of talk about how gender plays a role in this? Because, I mean, I've seen it covering, by the way, huge news. The Dakota Access Pipeline has been shut down.
That's wonderful.
So the
news.
fight has won, at least temporarily, years later, but the Dakota Access Pipeline, a judge ruled that they have 30 days to discontinue the pipeline, citing the fact that the Army Corps of Engineers never did a formal environmental impact study,
Love it.
which they were supposed to do. So huge victory. I'll do a separate video on that. Huge victory
Excellent.
for water protectors, Native Americans, their white allies who came down to Standing Rock. So protest does work, even
Yes.
if delayed.
Yes.
The reason I bring that up is Native American women go missing,
Yep.
get raped, never attention in the
Never.
media,
Never.
and black women as well. So can you kind of talk about the gender aspect here?
I think it's certainly going to take women, particularly black women and women of color, to keep raising up these stories. Like Malcolm X said, the most disrespected person in America is the black woman, the most neglected and the most unprotected person. Not the most unprotected woman, but the most unprotected person is the black woman. So I think it's important for us to continue to lift up these stories. It's difficult being a woman in America. It's different. It's difficult being a black woman in America, and so it's going to be important for us to continue to raise up these stories. And this is how I tell people all the time when they don't understand, like how. And I said, if I told you, give me 4 or 5 names of black men that have been killed by the police, they can rattle them off. Now, and if I ask you the same question and tell me 4 to 5 names of black women that have been killed by the police, they will struggle to find the 4 to 5 names. Of course, there are many more than 4 to 5 names, but that's why it's important to lift up black women, because these are names that are often erased from history. And Breonna Taylor, sadly, was on the way to being erased from history. It was kind of just covered up here, like it would just go away. And I'm glad that it didn't. I'm glad that people really started speaking up. And that's why there's the hashtag Say Her Name. That's why it's important to continue to say Breonna Taylor's name, because it will be erased from history.
And let me ask you, because, I don't know, call me a common sense dude, but what exactly are they investigating? I mean, witnesses
Right.
have said the police
Yeah.
went barged in there with a battering ram without identifying themselves. I'm sure they got the ballistics.
Yeah.
It came out that one of the bullets went stray into another apartment with an infant. We know Breonna was killed. We know through the New York Times actually did a really good investigation showing basically the timeline of what happened. And they showed that, no, the police started shooting first. So the bottom line is, why is this investigation taking so long? It seems like a dog and pony show to me.
It really does to me, too. And when you have, and it took even this case happening for me to look at the FOP, collective bargaining agreement with the city. It basically,
the Fraternal Order
of Police.
Yeah.
It basically allows the police to just do anything freely. And very rarely, if ever, get fired or get arrested or indicted for anything. It's really kind of a blanket to go out and do what they have been doing. You think about the officer, Brett Hankinson, involved in this case. This didn't just start with Breonna. It has come out, this is factual, people can look it up. He has ran over one of his own detectives. He is allegedly, and term used lightly because I believe the women, have been sexually assaulting women. And now you are involved in the murder of Breonna Taylor. So how many things must Brett do before he is arrested, right? So he didn't just start this on March 13th. He got caught March 13th, right? Because all the other incidents have been before March 13th. So, and that didn't happen in a bubble. It happened because this is a character and environment of the LMPD. This is not the first corruption case LMPD has been involved in there, and people can look this up. This is factual case, I believe is still going on. The Explorer program, where you have 2 officers sexually assaulting kids that are in this Explorer program, mentoring program. This has all come out. This is all factual. People can Google it and look it up. So this is a culture of the LMPD. And so to me, like they fired Conrad, and then the police chief, and then they fire Hankinson. But to me, it's like a hydra. They're just one head of the hydra. You have to deal with the environment and culture of the police department. What you saw today, that's the culture of the police department. That's why officers can be smirking and laughing and finding enjoyment in this, because this is the environment of the police department. And that's what needs to change here. And you don't change that. And I want the officers fired. I want them arrested. But you don't change that just by doing 1 or 2, because it will be more. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just the culture of the LMPD.
And remember to press the like button, thumbs up button right under the live stream. Share this live stream. We appreciate your support. Super chats. We got our page going for this road trip, statuscoup.com/road trip. So if you like the real in the field reporting, giving the microphone to people you will not see on CNN or MSNBC or quoted in the New York Times, drop a couple bucks if you can. Statuscoup.com/road trip. We really appreciate it. You know, I want to ask you, because to me, you know, yes, police culture, but we're in Louisville, Kentucky.
City culture.
The Confederacy,
yep.
Segregation.
All of it.
I mean, you see the monuments coming down all over the country, but you can't retrain race. You can't train racism out of people, and you can't change the root culture in places. Maybe you could improve it, but can you kind of talk about the history of Kentucky and Louisville?
I think, and people, and here Kentucky tries to pretend as if it was neutral during slavery. That's false. Okay, many people in Kentucky owned slaves. Many people in Kentucky sold slaves. They sold them right down the Ohio River, down to the south. A lot of families that still remain here, their wealth was built on the backs of enslaved black men, women, and children. That's simply reality. They have named organizations after them. They have put up street signs after them. These people were slave owners. That's the reality. That's the reality that Kentucky simply needs to face, and that Kentucky does not want to face. But you cannot hide this any longer. This is what I've always said, is the blood will cry out, the earth will yell, the ancestors, the bones of all of these black bodies are crying out to be heard, and Kentucky can no longer hide that. What Kentucky has done in this city, just 3 streets down, you have quarantined black people to a certain section of a city and went on about your life and forgot about them until you want to come in now and extract something from this city. So now you want the Russell neighborhood, and sadly now it is being reported that it's attached to the death of Breonna Taylor. This is the nature of this city, and until the city faces what it has done historically and is doing currently, then things won't change here. And it takes people like myself and so many other people that are just going to speak truth to power. Here, this is where I'm at in my life right now, Jordan. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to speak it. If you don't like it, I don't care.
Preach.
Because we are at a life or death crucial moment. When you can walk into a 26-year-old woman's home and shoot her 8 times, attempt to cover it up, and nobody says anything. From the top down, we have a problem. You know, the plane is on fire. And there are too many people in Kentucky, particularly Louisville, that think, well, that's down in the West End, as if it will not come to their home. And this is how I tell everybody. You have, if people now look at gentrification as the first step, the greed, now it's connected to Breonna Taylor's death. Breonna Taylor's death is connected to David McAtee's death that was killed by the National Guard. And Tyler Gerth's death is now connected to David and Breonna, as he was a photographer down here doing photojournalism, reporting everything that was going on. So now 3 people have been killed that we know of, connected to alleged gentrification. So you have Breonna's black, and David McAtee's a black man, and then you have Tyler, this young white man. And so if people think that won't get to them because they're out in the East End, they are sadly mistaken. It will be at your doorstep in Louisville because you cannot contain racism. It's not going to stay neatly contained down on 6th and Jefferson. So people need to wake up. Wake up. This is happening. How can you be involved? How can you support change in this city? If you are not about that, you're in the way. Move. This is where I stand now.
And you brought up a great point. We haven't even talked about David McAtee.
Minding his own business.
David McAtee was a restaurant owner, black man, known in the community, beloved in the community, used to give police officers free meals, used to give people, you know, falling on tough economic times, free meals, had a local barbecue kind of shack restaurant, and during the George Floyd protests, the National Guard shows up, police show up. They say that David shot at them first. But the New York Times did a piece. They went through the timeline and they showed through, through ballistics and a bunch of other stuff that the police fired first. And there were pepper bombs thrown for nothing.
For nothing. And so you have a man, this was down, I believe it's on 26, right off of 26 and Broadway. So this is where the central location was for the protest. It was right here. I got tear gassed right there. So he's 20 blocks away. He is not even involved in anything that's happening down here. And as soon as the governor and the mayor made the call for the National Guard to come in here, it's a bad call because somebody will actually end up dead, right? This is how it always pans out. And so he's minding his business, doing what he does any other day. And now he's dead. The National Guard had no business in the West End, but this is when you have mentality and a culture of over-policing. You see no problem calling in the National Guard in the West End. You see no problem with it. And so that's the sad reality that people need to face, is this is not just contained to Breonna Taylor. Her life has touched and impacted so many people, even if just not a death. You know, my daughter, who happens to be named Breonna, and almost the same age as Breonna Taylor. But to think about how this has impacted her mental health, or to hear fireworks now, and I'm always looking and thinking and wondering since I was tear gassed down here. So even outside of dying, there's the mental aspect of dealing with racism over and over and over again.
I just want your hand. I just want your hand.
Thank you.
I just want to bless you.
Thank you. If it wasn't pandemic, we'd hold hands.
Where I'm from, we bless by the hand.
Can we elbow it?
Yes.
I love you, my brother.
Yeah, I saw you earlier. Man. You keep doing your thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you kind of talk about, I mean, people have been here for weeks, protesting, there's been vigils here.
Yep.
What's the energy been like of the community?
When I've been down here, the energy has always been positive, and I was actually down here when they were planting the new flowers and vegetation. So it's wonderful to see this. But that's the girl, Shamika, is the one that has organized and been down here and done all of the things. So she certainly can speak to probably everything that has taken place from day one down in Jefferson Square Park. But I felt like this was a place for community coming together, a place for healing, a place, across from Metro Hall and the courthouse, to lay this at their feet. This lays at your feet, and we're not going anywhere. And people have asked me, well, are the protests done? No, because people want to go back to comfort. That's over. This doesn't just go back and we just forget that a 26-year-old young woman was murdered in her home. That's not going to happen. So this is where we are. The city just needs to face that. This is your day of reckoning. So here we are.
And what's to people in other communities, there might be other Breonna Taylors we don't know about, right?
Yes.
What do you say to people, even white people,
Yep.
who want to do something, but they just don't know where to start?
Yeah.
What's your message based off what the protests that have been going here in Louisville, Kentucky, to others?
Certainly what I feel, especially for many white people and many white allies or white accomplices, get involved with your local Black Lives Matter chapter, or standing up for racial justice, or get online and find a place where you can connect. This is what I tell people all the time. Everybody's role in the protest may be different. You don't have to all do the same thing. There was a person, and Shamika can speak more to this, that brought the flowers down for them. That was their role. This is what I can do. And people always think it has to be a big gesture. Someone bought the chalk. Someone laid out the flowers around her. Someone's bringing the water. Someone made the sign that says Breonna Taylor. Someone purchased the tents. So there's something that you can do. Don't feel like the problem is so big I can't do anything. Just see where if I cook, can I cook a meal for someone? If I'm really good with kids, can I provide childcare one day? If I'm an artist, can I come down and draw something? Find where you fit and do that thing. The best protest is the one that you will do. Yeah.
And you're a poet, so where can
Yes.
people find your work?
My Instagram and Twitter is Hannah Drake 628, and my website is hannahLdrake.com. So.
I might have to get you to do a poem for Status Quo. for our
I
outlet.
might have to one day.
We need some good prose. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you very, very much.
Awesome. You can give me that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can you ask them? Cool. So a couple things. First of all, it's such a shame. It's such a shame that amazing voices like Hannah. Do you hear those voices in the media? Not just corporate media. I don't really hear those voices much in independent media. I mean, that's what we do. We kind of come to communities and try to just talk to people, because you really get the truth more from people than you will from pundits, elected officials, lobbyists, whatever. I mean, literally, we got to Louisville yesterday. I mean, you can't look away. We were about to start the interview. The police show up commando style. And again, I shot that live on my Periscope at Jordan Chariton, so you could see what happened. We'll cut it up later and put it on YouTube. But they got in the protesters' face for no reason, for absolutely no reason. To pull down a tent, they required 12 police officers. I've never seen anything like it before. And but the protesters, once the tent was pulled down, they said, "All right, you forced us to pull down the tent? We'll put up umbrellas, damn it." They just are not stopping. They got white allies too, kind of on the front lines next to the lead protesters who are obviously black. So it's really, really good. It's really great. Okay. Okay. You want to come on? Till they come over? So, Jen,
Yeah.
kind of hot out, huh?
It is. I am dripping sweat. Like, it's dripping. It's gross.
Well, we do it anyway. We're waiting for somebody else to come over, but I wanted to get your thoughts. We'll cut it up later, but what we saw with the police literally required 12 police officers to demand that protesters take down a tent. Like there's nothing else going on in Louisville that the police could be doing. To me, it just looked like a lot of the officers were smirking and enjoying it.
Mm-hmm. So Jordan already set this up, but he was about to interview Hannah, and all of a sudden we see police officers just start streaming over to where they had this tent set up. Now, not a camping tent, a shade tent, because protesters are out here daily fighting for justice. They were literally just standing under the shade tent, listening to music. They have food and water and supplies over there, and everyone was just chill. Then these police come over, and we saw this commotion, so we started to go over there and start recording what was going on. The police just started saying, you have to take this tent down, you have to take this tent down. Protesters were ready for this. They had the list of ordinances for the park saying, we're not camping. Where does it say we're not allowed to have an umbrella here? Where does it say that? The police more of them kept coming. Protesters were speaking their minds, of course, because it was absolutely ridiculous. The protesters were not doing anything wrong at all. Cops were just, and Jordan mentioned it, smirking. And at one point, I looked over, and Jordan was talking to one of the police officers, and he couldn't see her face when she turned back to the front. She was like rolling her eyes and.
Well, I said, what is this nonsense? Why do you require 12 police officers to pull down a tent? Why are you even spending time on a tent? Like a city ordinance? Obviously, this isn't about the police executing the law. This is about them continually fucking with protesters, trying to frustrate the protests, trying to intimidate the protesters, basically trying to get them to stop. So you do little things as a police department. Oh, you can't have your tent up here in 100-degree weather. You need to move down there to protest. It's just intimidation, and underneath it all, frankly, it's racism.
Yes.
What do you think, Jamal?
Yeah, so I was just witnessed and was a part of that whole basically the confrontation with the cops and protesters. I thought it was absolute fucking bullshit. I'm sorry. It's very frustrating to see people just trying to be heard, and actively the police are trying to shut down what they're saying. Like, it just, as I was recording live, I was witnessing a lot of what the protesters have to go through, and I was like, I turned around to one, and they were like, this is every day. It's every day there's something new that they want to come and hassle us for. And I'm like, it must be exhausting, you know? Not only are people not listening to you, but when it's like when you get something going, when you just get a little bit of organization or just it's just very frustrating to be in that situation, because I felt like I was being silenced, because it very much it affects me too, you know? Like, there are people who go through what these protesters go through where I live. So it's a different kind of show of force for the cops in Louisville to have 8 cop cars line up, almost surround the fucking park, and take down a tent. They came down here to take down a tent. Nobody got arrested. No property was damaged. It's just very frustrating. I think that people need to continue to protest and show that they're not going to give up, you know? Just because they had a fucking tent up, we should keep protesting.
Yeah.
That's basically what I have to say.
keep pressing that like button. Keep pressing the share button. I think we're waiting for another interview. By the way, real quick, I definitely, obviously the attention we want to keep on Breonna Taylor, but it's a huge, huge day. The Dakota Access Pipeline, again, if you don't know, the Dakota Access Pipeline, which has been in use for over 3 years, a judge has ruled they got to shut it down. They've given the oil company 30 days to shut it down. Now, obviously, people are celebrating. Native Americans are celebrating. Activists are celebrating. Environmentalists are celebrating. I cautiously say, let's wait and see. There's going to be appeals. So it's not over till it's over. They've got 30 days. But a judge has ruled, I don't know why it took 3 years, that basically the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers violated federal law because they never did a environmental impact statement for the Dakota Access Pipeline. An environmental impact statement can take up to 2 years to do, and it is supposed to be done before major infrastructure projects to assess, will this affect the water, the air, the land, the animals, Mother Earth, planet Earth. They never did this for the Dakota Access Pipeline, even though they were putting a crude oil pipeline 90 feet under one of the biggest river, the longest river in the United States. A river, the Missouri River, that goes downstream to 20 million people. We have no true idea if oil has spilled in the Missouri River, because frankly, oil companies, the laws in America do not really truly force them to report oil spills. There's also little spills that don't reach the volume necessary that forces oil companies to report it. So for all we know, there have been spills, but the bottom line is Dakota Access Pipeline, a ruling is forcing them to shut it down. 3 years delayed, but that is huge. If you remember, I was there on and off for 6 months, freezing my little Jewish tushy off, but it was worth it because it shows you just when you think there's no hope, just when you think we're all protesting for nothing. And I remember saying when I reported, folks, I got to tell you, I've never heard of a judge ruling that they dig a pipe out of the land when it's already there. Well, a judge has ruled just that. They have to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline. So it's a huge, huge, huge victory. Again, let's be cautiously optimistic because, appeals could go in, it could be reversed. But for now, that's what's happening. So I wanted to bring that up. Yeah, is she here? You think?
Yeah, she's right there.
Yeah, try to get her again. When she comes, can you get the gloves too? So as Jen goes over to try and get another person to speak to, we'll show you some more. You see the chalk, BLM, Queen Bree, talking about Breonna, Queen Bree. You see flowers and all that in memorial. There was a Stop the War on Drugs sign. Defend Black Life over there, Black Lives Matter. Breonna Taylor chalked on the side here. They've also renamed this, from what I'm hearing, just so people can see we're on it. Jen is disinfecting the mic. I'm going to need a disinfectant of my body. It's so hot. Holy cow, it's hot. But they've renamed this Injustice Square to kind of signify the fact, that, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're about 115 days. 115 days since Breonna Taylor's murder. Nobody's been arrested. Two of the police officers involved, still on the job. But again, nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been charged with anything. It's almost like a black woman wasn't shot while sleeping dead. So the injustice is real, and the protesters seem to be continuing, which is good. Because I think in a lot of cases, corporations, the government, their goal is to wait it out. Oh, let them protest, let them go on and on. Well, these protesters are saying, we're not going to stop. So we're about to bring on another. bring on another protester. She's one of the lead organizers who's been organizing a lot of the protests here. So looking forward to speaking with her. Keep pressing that like button, share this live stream, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. statusquo.com/road trip to check out photos that we've taken from this road trip. You could also donate there. We could use the money because it's expensive traveling 3 people. So let's, hello, how you doing?
All right, how you doing?
Thanks for joining us. What's your name?
Shamika Parrish, right?
Shamika. So I've been told you've been kind of leading, one of the leaders here.
I was going to say, we are a bunch of leaders. I'm one of the leaders, the many leaders here, yes.
Can you kind of talk about, I mean, we were about to start an interview with Hannah, and we saw the police come in commando style over a tent.
Yes.
I was talking to Hannah, like, this is nothing new for you guys, right?
Yes, and they're getting us with, the language changes, everything changes day by day. We were here the first 30 some odd days, no issues. We started staying overnight. We had tents. And then a community developed. There was a lot of houseless people here. So we stayed to support them. We had medical support. We had resources, food. We helped them from getting phones to getting signed up for benefits. We became the compassionate community that our city prides itself on when we say it's a compassionate city. And then, you know, we're here. We're keeping it right here in front of the mayor's porch. Our local jail is right there. Our city hall right there. Our courthouse is right there. All of the city government buildings are right there, so that's why we took over the park and we called it Injustice Square Park, because there hasn't been justice for Breonna Taylor. And now more murders after her, even though the LMPD didn't murder the last 2 people, they still are impacted because of everything that's going on and all of this, and we just asking for those officers to be fired, arrested, and prosecuted.
You know, it's unbelievable to me. This hasn't gotten enough attention.
No.
But it came out that they basically just cooked the police report. They said there was no injury, even though she died. They say no forced entry, even though a lot of witnesses say they went in with a battering ram and all this stuff. So you have, not only did they recklessly go in middle of the night to someone without a criminal, she doesn't have a criminal record.
Right.
She's an EMT.
Right.
They could have went in during the day very calmly,
Right.
whatever, if they wanted to talk to her about something. Not only that, but they then lied after the fact. How many more?
Right.
How many more cases don't we know
I
about
think
here?
all of the cases involved with those officers need to be looked at again and reevaluated, because that corruption didn't just happen with Breonna Taylor. It took Breonna Taylor's upstanding citizen relationship and being in this society for folks to be like, wow, this happened to a black woman. Because usually when black women are killed, it's not elevated to such a level. But it was not only a black woman, this is an outstanding, exceptional young woman who was doing everything right. I have daughters that are her age, you know, and so that's what brought me out here first as a mother. I also am the operations manager for the Bail Project, and I'm also co-chair of the Kentucky Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression. So all of these things and these activities that I'm doing is connected to my employment and also my professional role in the community, as well as a very personal role as a mother of 4 daughters and 2 black sons.
And can you kind of talk about that, because it doesn't get discussed enough, the fact that she's a black woman.
Yes.
And that women don't necessarily get the same attention. Obviously, there was no video in this case, but
No.
even in other cases, it doesn't seem like black women getting killed gets the same attention.
That is exactly right. That's why me and 7 other black women got together and said, this could have been one of our daughters. This could have been one of our sons. And how can you say go home and be safe when Breonna was at home? She should have been safe, and she was killed by people sworn to protect her. So it's important that we lift this up. And when I say it's personal too, I have a dear friend, his name is Sam Dubose, who was murdered by the Cincinnati police officer Ray Tensing in 2015, right around Sandra Bland. And I was out lifting up the voices around Sandra Bland's case. My friend was murdered. I understand that officer was immediately fired. He did come back and sue. So when our mayor says, oh, they might sue us, we don't care. Show us that you're listening to the demands of the family. Show us that you're listening to the demands. You have more community people than you do that are police. Even police that are on the force know that that was wrong. Even people who work in city government know that what happened to Breonna Taylor was wrong. What happened is the mother drove around for over 7 hours looking for her daughter. And when she got back to her apartment after searching for her daughter, they wouldn't let her in, and the first thing they asked her was did Kenneth and her daughter have any domestic issues? So they knew that they had already murdered her. They knew she was laying in there dead, and they're still trying to push the blame away from themselves. They're still trying to say that they have issues. No, you know you murdered her. The total disrespect, and it being a black woman, it infuriated all of us. But you're exactly right. A lot of these kinds of cases don't make the news. There's Rakisha McBride. There's so many names of black women. So that's why we say their names, say her name, lift their names up. But black men, we know that they die at the hands of the police. We don't want anyone, poor white people, brown people, Native American people, we don't want anyone dying by the hands of the police. Not unnecessarily like that.
And can you kind of talk about a little, too, this doesn't happen in a vacuum.
No.
This is an economically devastated area. It seems to me, and Breonna Taylor's lawyer is alleging, they're trying to force a lot of you out. They're
Yes.
trying to bulldoze a whole block. Breonna Taylor's family just added to their lawsuit a claim that her death was associated with basically the police trying to gentrify a whole block in the west side. Basically, they have left the west side of Louisville, many other areas can sympathize, to rot. How does that impact the treatment of black people here?
I like that you can pull all of that out and you're visiting and going through here. That is powerful. Exactly what you said, and I hate that that's so. I am a resident of the West End. I had children in the West End. So I definitely lived in the same community, so I know from firsthand our end of town is often neglected, often not given the resources it deserves. That's another reason why we said when this first went down, the first night when things got crazy, we got together and we said we got to do something because our youth are going to be ready to burn this city down. But we don't want them burning down the West End because we know it won't be rebuilt. It won't get the resources that it deserves. And so we wanted to bring that activity up here, not to burn it down, but we wanted to bring the activity of trying to find justice here, right in Injustice Square, and protect the West. That's the whole initiative, protect the West. We redistribute food down there. When that Kroger's was broken in by a young white man, they showed black people looting, but we know that there was white people who broke in it. There are white people on other people's Facebook lives admittedly saying, I drove down here from Shepherdsville or Shelbyville and came down here for the looting thing. But see, we also have a lot of homegrown anger our mayor doesn't want to acknowledge because police abuse and police brutality has been a problem. It's been a problem in our city. I moved here in the early 2000s. Even when I came here, there was Michael Newby that had been killed by the police. People shot in their back. People handcuffed and shot in their back. So I'm a part of Citizens Against Police Abuse, which is out of the Kentucky Alliance, but it's totally built on ending police brutality. So it's been a problem. And when you couple that with poverty, when you couple that with gentrification, when you couple that with people wanting to take over and all these land banks and land development, it's a book. The book is already written. What we're saying is we're not going to stand here and let this continue to happen. When Mike Brown was killed, many of us, same group that have helped co-organize here, went right up to Ferguson to be there in the space, not to come in as outside agitators, but to be on the ground with them and give them support. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're giving our young people, all the citizens, our houseless people, everyone's upset about this. Professionals, everyone, judges, all these people are accepted. But some of those people are in jobs where they can't stand out like we can. So that's our job to come out here and hold up this space and make sure that we get justice for Breonna Taylor.
And federally, obviously, you got to do things on a local level too.
Yes.
But you got Mitch McConnell, who's
Yes.
basically not representing you.
No.
Obviously, Charles Booker had a lot of momentum.
Yes.
We all know one polling booth for 600,000
Yes.
people. The voting time, they
Yes.
cut it at 6 o'clock.
Over 6,000 ballots thrown away
Right.
for improper signatures. That's just, it's the corruption in our state is not just in Louisville. Louisville happens to be one of the urban places, so it gets blamed for a lot of it, but it's all over our state. And it starts with people like Mitch McConnell. And it's a lot of undoing that we have to do, which is why we were trying to get Booker there. It's our elected officials. It's a lot of grandfathering in. It's a lot of nepotism. It's a lot of issues that have been horrible for Kentucky and its citizens. And people like myself, working class people who can't catch a break. We can't catch a break, and we need dependable leadership, and we don't have that. And so people like Mitch McConnell can insulate himself and keep insulating himself and be untouchable and come to our city, do what he needs to do, and go out to somewhere else and continue to cause damage to our whole state. I don't know how people can continue to vote for him and vote against their best interests. It is sad. It's a lack of education. But sometimes when people are poor and they don't have nothing else, they hang on to these hopes and dreams from these people who don't have any intentions on seeing that through.
So let's talk about what comes next. I mean,
We're fighting on
again,
all ends.
I don't know what they're investigating. I
Yes.
don't know why it's taken that long.
Right.
You guys wanted the police department to, cut funds.
Yes.
They're saying no.
Our police department got a raise. I mean,
Imagine that at a time like this with its protests around the country, the police department, instead of listening to the community, is increasing the budget.
Yes, our Metro Council voted to increase their budget, and people have to understand that the fund the police conversation has many layers. Not everyone is saying fire every police officer and do what you need to do. We're saying, why are so many funds being reallocated to people who use those funds and there's so much misuse? We had an Explorer program that was horrible. Children were abused by police officers. We have so many examples of abuse, corruption, violation. We have a FOP that is racist, that only comes out and rears its ugly head when it's against another black woman, Councilwoman Green, Representative Attica Scott. These are the women that the FOP come out against, who are speaking up for the rights of their community, of their constituency, and it's horrible. Black Lives Matter leader Chanel Ham was attacked by them as well. They have no regard, and then they do all these photo ops and send people out here to take pictures like they're okay with this. They hate that we're here, and we know that they hate that we're here. And so we're fighting this on many levels. We can't always announce it because there's an active force working against us, but we have people who are in many different departments who are trying to look at the legislation around the immunity with the police. We just had the no knock warrant that was led off by a beautiful sister. Her name is Katora Heron, and we just got that passed unanimously by our Metro Council. So that was a big step. But we also need those warrants to be randomly assigned, because what those officers did, they picked the weakest judge they can find to sign off on these bogus warrants. And she obviously didn't read them, and it's nothing against Judge Shaw. In my professional life, she does better around sentencing and things like that. But when it comes to taking care and not really being thorough when it comes to police, when these police submit warrants, that's a problem. So that's why we're saying that even the gentleman that that had her sign off on those warrants, he needs to be dealt with as well as our judges. So if you randomly assign, if all 4 of us was arrested and we went to court, our cases will be randomly assigned to judges. That way you can't pick them. We want those warrants to be randomly assigned. One of our pro bono attorneys, Ted Schaus, wrote an amazing article, op-ed piece about that. We want that to be one of the things that are added to the list of demands. We want the demands that the family want. They're not even being acknowledged for their hurt and their pain. Even the Minneapolis mayor came out and apologized and said that George Floyd shouldn't have died like that. You should not have to die in police interactions and police stops, at traffic stops. You shouldn't have to die in those altercations. And she shouldn't have died laying in her bed. Everything she's done, everything right, law-abiding citizen, and she dies in her sleep by those who are to protect and serve. So we have to keep that focus. But we have other demands. On LouisvilleCappa.com, we have a list of the growing list of demands from around the city, from individuals, from groups, and we keep listing them there.
Let me ask you, has Amy McGrath, now the Democratic nominee for Kentucky, to take on McConnell, has she reached out to the protesters?
No, and I'm not surprised. I mean, you can buy elections here. I mean, I help work to get people elected. You literally can buy them here. And people look at how much somebody raised, and they determine their decisions on that. And I think that that's horrible.
She got $50 million, mostly from
yes,
D.C.
And mostly from outside. Exactly. And so the people wanted Booker, and the people are still going to push every way they can. No, I haven't seen her here once at Injustice Square. I have seen Charles Booker. I have seen Representative Scott. I have seen Senator Jay O'Neill. And then the mayor even has come down here at least 6 or 7 times before. You know, every time he comes down, the questions get harder and harder, and so we don't see him as much anymore.
That's really something that during a nationwide civil rights explosion,
Yeah,
that the Democratic nominee
she went ghost.
has not come down here, has not really communicated with the protesters. Says a lot.
She don't. She can run. She can literally showing us that she can do her job without ever talking to the people of the community, the black people, the brown people, the working class, the poor white people. She's showing us that I can run this race and never have to talk to you people.
Which is a problem because on
That's
one end you got
horrible.
McConnell, who we
Yes.
all know is terrible, but on the other end you got a Republican light.
Right.
So it's like that. Neither one's going to lift up your community.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the Democratic Party and not being stronger in the forefront and backing really good candidates and stop doing this namesake and this money game that they do. The Democratic Party, people are losing faith in the Democratic Party for these nominations, and it's going to get worse. And so you're going to have a lot of people who want to go a different route. And so it sucks because in our state, to vote in a primary, you have to either be Republican or Democrat. And so that shows you, some people don't even believe in a party, but they will still participate to get the right choice in there. And so the Democratic Party needs to do more listening from the ground up and not top down.
And maybe a little less taken
Yes.
from Wall Street and all
That
these
is-
companies that are predators on the black community.
I totally agree. And it continues on. That's why our city, our state has become a cesspool for this type of corruption, that it runs so deep. You know, and like you're trying to undo it, and it's literally a battle. That's why we did co-leadership, because if my employer was here, they'd be calling it. They already are calling to try to get me fired. We have to move so strategic and so, but the unity cannot be matched. The unity of the people, that's where I'm going to always stand. And if I was a mayor, I would say, what are the majority of my people saying? The majority of your people are saying, fire those officers, white, black, other. All of them are saying the same message. Affluent homes to houseless. Everybody's saying it. So I don't know what the FOP or what the police department has over our mayor, but if he thinks that he's going to go on to the next position and just with their support, he is sadly misinformed.
And lastly, I just want you to show the camera
Okay.
your shirt.
Oh, yeah,
And,
someone gave this to me.
What does that mean? Let me breathe.
Let me breathe. We can't breathe from all the corruption. We can't breathe that Breonna Taylor was killed in her sleep. We can't breathe watching George Floyd die on video. We can't breathe watching my dear friend Sam Dubose be killed at a traffic stop over a missing license plate. We can't breathe from police violence and police brutality. We're tired. We're out here. This is our 39th day out here since everything broke off. And we are going to be out here and fighting as much as we can for everyday people. I don't want it to be your daughter, your son, my daughter, my son, my grandkids. It has to stop with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you all for doing it.
Absolutely. So
All right.
I'm gonna come over. I'm gonna come over and say hi when I'm done.
Okay.
Okay.
And there's drinks over here in the cooler,
Oh.
water, everything.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So she was amazing, and those are the leaders that are organizing, big and small, from the protests to keeping places like this going day to day. So it's really powerful, and I think it's great seeing black women step up as the leaders. A lot of these protests I've seen in New York has black women on the megaphones, and that's important for this movement to have women at the front, just with the men. Did I miss something? What's that? What'd you say as I'm sweating my tushy off?
We have some wonderful support in our road trip fundraiser, which is at statusquo.com/roadtrip. So Artiga, Deborah, GMFIV, Katie, and Morocco. Thank you so much, guys. You are the reason we're able to be out here. You're the reason we are able to get to Louisville to report on the horrific murder of Breonna Taylor, David McAtee, and the ongoing efforts here of protesters. Also, check out that page too, because I've been doing blog post updates, putting up behind the scenes pictures and things like that. It's hot out here, guys. We really appreciate your support. statusquo.com/roadtrip.
And I'll also say, as much as we appreciate the road trip donations. We would even love more if right now we're kind of like boyfriend and girlfriend, or boyfriend and boyfriend, whatever. We'd love more if you commit to us. Commitment is what we're looking for, folks. Statuscoup.com/join. You could join us as a member, a monthly member, or an annual member for as low as $5 a month. That's the lowest monthly membership. And we also have annual membership at $179 a year. Listen, we totally get it. Tough times for everybody. So if you can't sign up as a member, that's fine. But I just want to let you guys know, because of coronavirus, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of members who have had to cancel. So we're trying to grow our company for the long term so we could do more of this. Listen, humble brag, the Young Turks is not out here, folks. CNN is not out here, folks. MSNBC is not out here, folks. We're out here. And we're going to continue to be going out there. We're trying to be safe. There's a pandemic. We're avoiding states with like exploding cases. But within, a calculated risk, we decided to come across the country. We started our road trip in Newark, New Jersey, which on top of the pandemic has a lead crisis. We interviewed folks there. Then we went to Allentown, Pennsylvania, interviewed folks there. Then we went to Pittsburgh. We interviewed folks there. Then we went to Akron, Ohio, interviewed folks there. And now we're in Louisville, Kentucky. And let me tell you something. This stuff happens quick. We're booking guests on the fly, trying to figure out where we're going next. So we really appreciate your support. Statuscoup.com/road trip. Statuscoup.com/join. We just hit, by the way, 40,000 Twitter followers. So that's awesome. Follow us at StatusCoup if you can on Twitter.
I just wanted to tell people who are considering becoming members, later on today, I'm going to post a video of Jordan singing Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. You guys definitely want to see this. Also, other behind-the-scenes content. We have a lot of content that I'm going to put up for members. $5 a month, 16 cents a day, statuscoup.com/join.
All right, straight up, I'm about to melt. It's hot out.
We gotta get water.
We're going to go get water. We will probably be back live a little bit later. I'm not sure when. But join our text list so you can get a text message when we're live. Text COUP to 370-370. That's COUP to 370-370. Peace.
I'm gonna still go get water.